when he's talking about contextualization of the studies, and therefore at two levels I think this his writings have really helped us to understand India. The other part, if I look, is the caste studies, and in one of the articles, Dipankar Gupta edited the caste questions. In that, Professor Jodhka's seminal contribution in one paragraph, if I can quote, while caste is a nearly dead in Punjab as an institution or as an ideology, it survives as a source of identity. Now, this he was trying to draw this conclusion from the contest between the Jat Sikhs on the one hand and the Adi Dharmis on the other. And therefore, the old model of the understanding of caste, as Professor Dipankar writes, that Sanskritization model to understand the mobility is deconstructed. Instead of Sanskritization, there is politicization and assertion of the other caste, and that's why they have replaced even Guru Nanak, and they have brought Guru Ravidasa and their own Gurudwaras in that context, actually. So, I think there are different vantage points to understand Indian society, which have been enriched by Professor Jodhka. As far as our understanding, I told that I started understanding Indian society through the structure and processes, and then, of course, Louis Dumont's category of tradition and modernity, how the psychic rupture takes place when society moves from holism, hierarchy, continuity, and transcendence to individualism, egalitarianism, historicity, and this worldliness. That is, another vantage point. But Professor Uman helped us further to understand that Indian society is 4 into 1 society. And I think Jodhka's framework, or even Professor Dipankar Gupta's writing on stratification, helped us even to go further. Now, this 4 into 1 society, according to Uman, Indian society is stratified, as every society is, actually, within rich and poor, old and young, rural, urban, and then actually, male, female. This is stratified, no doubt, but it is also religiously plural, and all the world religions, they are, existing in Indian society, the major world religions. The third aspect, it is culturally plural, culturally heterogeneous, and he starts with, the language, the Grison's number of 766 language, or 22 languages which we have given constitutional status. They are there, and therefore, and then the caste, actually 3,741 caste only in one commission, that is Mandal Commission, and 2,111 caste at scheduled caste. So this heterogeneity, cultural heterogeneity, is very, very important to understand. But the last point is actually, according to him, is hierarchy, which is missing in many of the countries of the world, but India really gives us. That is not all, friends. Even nation, Indian society has been understood as a nation, though it's a social category, but nation state, how it has been camouflaged, I think anybody's guess. But according to a number of authors, there are 7 ways Indian nation has been conceptualized. And I just want to give you one-liners for that. Nation was equated with civilization. Of course, there is a lot of debate, and then it was not accepted. Nation was also considered as a composite culture entity where Hinduism and Islam was being brought, and Kabir on the one hand and Akbar on the other hand, they were considered as the representative repertoire of this scheme. The third was nation was considered as a political entity in which nation and state, they were actually combined. The fourth, nation was considered as a religious category, and in these 3 religions, Hinduism, Islam, and Sikhism, they were competing. But this was more or less by 1947. One religion succeeded, though there is a debate. Christopher Zeflet and others nationality without nation. How are they trying to argue that Pakistan was a nation without having language of its own, and even territory was not required, though territory and language are the two most important characteristics to evolve a nation. Then fifth, nation as a geographical and territorial entity with a specific cultural ethos. The sixth one, nation as a linguistic category, in which we have seen that how Indian society was divided itself 1956 on the basis of one language, one state formula, though Ambedkar was against it, that no, there should be number of languages and one state. But here actually, because of Nehru, we had in 1956 reorganization of state, which also gives us. Last but not the least, nation can also be considered as sub-nationalities where tribals and linguistic collectivities, they compete for their own existence. But we, as India, we have tried to adopt nation as the territorial as well as a linguistic category. This actually reminds also number of other people who have tried to look at, but I was looking S.C. Dubey, and S.C. Dubey gives us very, very easy way to treat the evolutionary perspective of nation in the making, that is India. And he talks about that we can definitely think of evolving nation as a category from proto-history to history, that is Vedic history. We can also think of protest religions as the evolutionary perspective of the nation. Then Etic and emic religions, contestation with that is another way to look at. And especially advent of Islam, according to S.C. Dubey, should not be considered as only one monolithic wave of Islam, but there are three waves according to him. Another aspect is the socio-religious reform, the Bhakti movements. They have also contributed into the development, and where Islam and Hinduism is considered to be the confluence when Sikhism is emerging. The advent of Europeans is another way to look at the evolution and development of Indian perspective. Freedom movement, and of course partition of India, and then making of the Indian constitution as a republic. The last epoch we can look at that how a constitution, and today's Constitution Day, 26th November 1949, and then of course the acceptance of constitution, and India becomes republics and moves in the path of development with a planned economy. Now this can be very easily understood that Indian society or Indian nation in the process of evolution has definitely seen. But as Professor Jodhka has definitely contributed, and I think we are waiting for keynote address also to further understand with my limited understanding of India as a nation. I think we try to look definitely the epochs in the making of the Indian society. With these limited words, I welcome again all of you, and I think this whole day, though it's very, very less, I know Professor Jodhka's writings, Professor Jodhka's contribution, especially academic, conceptions or concepts, I think itself will be taken too many days to understand, but I think it's a token. Please accept our love of tokens, sir, and I think we will have further. And I really request the organizers, I think a volume on this seminar should be there. I expect that very soon. So thank you so much for everyone for coming and giving us this very, very fruitful day today, which is waiting. With these words, I stop and I ask Professor Dipankar Gupta to take over.